The Book of the Dead, Chapter 4.
The four circles. Our solar system is a complete body with four complete circles. The circumference of each of the circles has its respective time pattern. The circle of the mineral region called Hell or Avachi etc. has a time scale that goes from 80 million to 80 years, a terribly slow time, very appropriate for all the mineral processes which take place within the earthly crust in that kingdom called Hell or Avachi. The circle of cellular life extends from 60 years to a month, and within this time all organisms that live on the surface of the earth normally develop. The circle of molecular life extends from 1 month to 40 minutes, and measures all phenomena and happenings of the molecular world. The molecular world is the region or regions of the atmosphere, the paradise of all religions. The circle of electronic life oscillates between 40 and 2.5 seconds. This is the time of the celestial regions with which the phenomena of light and solar happenings are measured. Avachi. The infernal region of Avachi is within the mineral crust of the earth. Avachi is below the limits of external sensory perception. Avachi belongs to the densest mineral regions. Avachi could never be discovered with the physical senses, because it belongs to the ultra. Avachi has 7 terribly dense regions. Avachi is symbolized by the inferno of the great religions. Inferno derives from infernos, lower region, the atomic infernos of nature. These are the submerged worlds within the Earth's interior. When a human being has become too materialistic, too lazy, then after judgment he enters Avachi. The Tibetan Book of the Dead says, on falling there, you will have to suffer unbearably, where there is certainly no time to escape. Those who become more and more evil end up entering the kingdom with which they have more affinity. This is the kingdom of rocks where the petrified fossil remains of those who were once living creatures abide. These are the people with hearts of stone, hearts of flint, etc. These people no longer respond to any kind of punishment, and each time that they return all they do is work in evil and for evil. They love evil for evil's sake. Because of their persistence in crime, because of their exaggerated materialism, they have become in some way mineral. This is the melting pot, the aim of which is to liberate a fraction of the causal particle, the prime material, the psychic product, a type of embryo soul shut up in the diabolical mineralized host. In Avachi those who are lost are involuted in time. From the human state they evolve to the animal state, then they return to the plant kingdom, and lastly to the mineral. Afterwards they disintegrate, are reduced to cosmic dust. When these shadowy entities disintegrate, something escapes inwards and upwards. What escapes is the embryo of the soul, the prime material, that returns to the world of the spirit. Let us remember the vision of who says, and he said, as they arrived, returned joyfully to the meadows, and camped there as if in a congregation, and they talked among themselves, some moaning and crying, when they remember the terrible things that they had suffered and seen on their journey under the earth. They said their journey had been 1,000 years, because, depending on the errors each man had committed, and the number of people he had harmed, he suffered, successively, 10 times for each one. Every 100 years they paid, because 100 years counts as the life of a man, and so it was that evil works were paid for 10 times over. The cellular region. The return of the human essence begins with conception. The trio that starts our life, conception, gestation, birth, is marvelous. It is amazing to think that man begins as a cell, subject to the rapid time of cells, and living in the world of cells. It is extraordinary to know that after about 80 years his human life ends overcharged with memories. The inner processes that begin conception are extremely rapid, but as time passes become slower. All organic processes become slower. In fact, the relativity of time does exist. Human gestation lasts 10 lunar months, infancy 100 lunar months, and life more or less 1,000 lunar months. The electromagnetic trace that the life of a man leaves in the instant of death is imprinted firmly on the conception of the fetus. The path of life is formed with the hoof marks of the horse of death. Death, judgment, and conception make a perfect trio. At the moment of death, says a book called Tibetan Doctrine, the 4 sounds called sounds that inspire sacred terror are heard: that of the vital force of the element earth, a sound like the collapse of a mountain; that of the vital force of the element water, a noise like that of ocean waves; that of the vital force of the element fire, a sound like that of a forest fire; that of the vital force of the element air, a sound like that of 1,000 thunderclaps echoing simultaneously. The place in which one seeks shelter, fleeing from these noises, is the womb. When the zoosperm unites with the ovum, gestation begins. The cell with which human life begins has 48 chromosomes. This clearly speaks of 48 laws that govern the human organism. There are 48 controls that regulate the human organism. The chromosomes are divided into genes. 100 or so make a chromosome. The total constitution of the human organism is determined by the genes. Genes are very difficult to study because they are made up of a few molecules. They vibrate rapidly and constitute an intermediary zone between the molecular world and the cellular world. The genes move and combine under the radio-active waves emitted by a dying person in his last moments. So the new physical body is the exact result of our past return, the faithful instrument of our karma. The life of every human being in the physical world is a repetition of the past life, plus its good and bad consequences. Time is round and events are repeated at the correct time and day. This is the law of recurrence. Everything happens again, as it happened before, but with its consequences, good as well as bad. This is the law of karma, the law of action and consequence. In fact, the object of the automatic repetition of events is to make us aware of our own errors. That is the law. Unfortunately, we can do nothing. Everything is repeated at the correct time, just as the hands of the clock go round. To change external circumstances, we have to change internally by forming soul and spirit, that is to say, processing being. Only the being can create. Only the being can change all things. Whoever wants to possess being has to transmute his sexual, emotional, mental, passionate, motor, sentimental, etc. energies. We have to transmute the base metals, that is to say, our defects, into the purest gold of the spirit. Only in this way will we possess soul and spirit. The pluralized ego has to die. It is urgent that the being be born within us. Life in the cellular world is a tremendous repetition of events. And we can only liberate ourselves from this tragic wheel of fate by dissolving the ego on the basis of supreme understanding and sanctity, and by forming soul and spirit. It is a horrible vicious circle, the wheel of samsara.
Samael on Weor, The Book of the Dead.